Hi, welcome to You,
Me,
and TV. I'm Mike.
I'm Gia.
And today we're going to be talking about the pilot episode of Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls was created by Amy Sherman-Palladino and premiered on the WB on October 5th, 2000.
Gilmore Girls aired for 7 seasons and was revived by Netflix for a 4-episode miniseries, Gilmore Girls: A Year in the Life, in 2016. And all seasons and the miniseries are available to stream on Netflix. And so, hey, let's start off by reading that Netflix description. And it's a good one, Gia. So here we go. Life dreams, boyfriends, intrusive relatives. A single mom and her daughter navigate a tricky path in life with humor. What do you think about that Netflix description, Gia? So you're a big fan of Gilmore Girls.
I am.
What do you think about that?
Life dreams?
Yeah, if you didn't, life dreams is the first sentence of that.
No punctuation between
See,
those.
I feel like there's supposed to be a period there because life, dreams, boyfriends, intrusive relatives.
They're trying to distinguish between dreams, like, you know, when you talk about like a dream you had the other night.
Like a daydream though?
Like a dream about your life.
You stop it.
It doesn't make any sense. It makes even less sense when you think they use the word life later on in the description.
Yeah, they say it twice.
So they don't need to specify it there because it's clear. I feel
it's always clear that you're talking about life for the most part on most hour-long comedy dramas.
Honestly, I feel like this Netflix description was maybe written by a non-native English speaker.
It's weird. I think they phoned it in a little bit there. And also, navigate a tricky path in life with humor. A tricky path in life is weird. Like if somebody, I've not watched the full series. Mm-hmm. I've only seen the pilot and then random episodes while you're watching. So I've seen some, episodes, but this isn't a spoiler. We'll get into it a little bit later, but the premise essentially is that I'll just explain it as best as I can from the pilot.
All right.
There's a woman in her early 30s, Lorelai Gilmore. Mm-hmm. She has a teenage daughter, Rory Gilmore.
Mm-hmm. Those are the Gilmore Girls.
Those are the Gilmore Girls. Well, there's more Gilmores too, aren't they?
There are, but those are the Gilmore Girls.
Okay, all right. Actually, do her parents that are in it, do they have the last name Gilmore as well? Okay, yeah. And anyway, Lorelai got pregnant at 16, and that's why she's in her early 30s with a teenage daughter. That's the tricky path in life.
I know, like a lot of people have trickier paths in life.
So if somebody were to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm pregnant and I'm only 16," well, that's a tricky path you're leading there.
Yeah,
it's weird. It's not a great Netflix description. It's certainly not pulling me in. Although most people, I would assume, have some familiarity with Gilmore Girls, and unless you're younger, I suppose. But that's not really reeling me in, that description there. But hey, let's get more into it, guys. Hey, you know what? Welcome, everybody. Welcome to You, Me, and TV. If this is your first episode listening to the podcast, you were just searching Gilmore Girls on podcasts and stuff like that, welcome. That's awesome. And if you're a listener, a fan of the show, a Dupree, as we call our fans, thanks for joining because of You, Me, and Dupree, like You, Me, and TV. Which,
I don't call our fans that.
I call all of them that. And anyway, what we do here is we break down first episodes of TV shows, and we also talk a little bit about You and Me. That's your host, Mike and Gia, and also TV, and kind of relate it to our own lives and all that kind of stuff. Just sort of celebrating those first episodes, looking back on them. Also kind of deciding, is that a show you would watch?
Yeah, although we've mostly only done shows that we really like.
That's true. We really have.
Maybe someday we'll do one
Maybe we'll watch a new show and we'll be like, no, thank you. Don't watch this show.
So far, they've all been thumbs up.
Thumbs up, yes. As Siskel and Ebert would say. Yeah. Or do, I guess. Yes. Ebert and Robert. Anyway, should we start talking about this show, Gia? I just mentioned too that you've seen the whole series.
Yes,
I'm a newbie, a Gilmore. I'm like I don't know what you would. I'm new to Stars Hollow, if you will.
Yeah.
So I get the gist because I've seen you watch some stuff. You're like Dean
in this episode.
I am like Dean because I'm very hot.
Very hot and tall. Yeah.
Hot and tall. Yeah. Let's get into it.
Okay. So just a little bit of background information on the show if you are not too familiar with it. So we mentioned that the show was created by Amy Sherman-Palladino, working along with her husband, Dan Palladino. Both of them had worked as writers on TV. They both worked on the show Roseanne and some other stuff. And so Amy Sherman-Palladino was in a meeting with producers at the WB. She pitched a few different ideas for pilots. And then the last idea that she ended up throwing out in that meeting was for an idea for a show about a mother-daughter relationship where they were more like friends than mother and daughter. And the people at the network were like, great, that's what we want. We'll do that. And so she was glad that they wanted to do that, but she also hadn't really given it that much more thought than what she had just told them.
Yeah.
So she had to kind of go from there and just build a whole show around that little idea of an unconventional mother-daughter relationship.
Do you think some of her other ideas that were shot down or the producers were less enthusiastic were things like, I want to write a show about a female stand-up comedian in the 1950s in New York City, and it's going to have a multi-million-dollar budget, and they're going to talk real quick and all that, and they said, look, we don't have an audience for that. Amy Sherman-Palladino.
Maybe she had to prove herself a little first with Gilmore Girls.
I think so. Amy Sherman-Palladino, if you're unfamiliar, is also the person behind The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is on Amazon, and which we also covered in an earlier episode of the podcast. So you should check that out, that's a fantastic show as well.
It is. And so is Gilmore Girls. So that's kind of how she came up with the idea for Gilmore Girls. She also was really inspired by the setting of the show. So the show is set in the fictional town of Stars Hollow, Connecticut. It's a small, kind of quirky town in New England, but it's based on this real life place called Washington Depot, Connecticut.
Do you want me to read this quote that you found?
Yeah, go for it.
This is Amy Sherman-Palladino saying, if I can make people feel this much of what I felt walking around this fairy town, I thought that would be wonderful. At the time I was there, it was beautiful, it was magical, and it was a feeling of warmth and small town camaraderie. There was a longing for that in my own life, and I thought, that's something that I would really love to put out there. And so you can feel that in this first episode. It definitely has. They introduce, I mean, I didn't count the amount of characters they introduced, but they introduced like tons of characters.
Yeah, and that's just a handful of the recurring characters who will show up in the show later on. They don't all make it into the pilot, but yeah, it's a small town full of like quirky people who all kind of are in each other's business but really care about each other.
Yeah,
and everybody's funny. And
we've talked about on the podcast before that you love those small town shows.
I love them.
Shows like what's that other one that was on not the WB? The WB is now the CW. It used to be kind of UPN too a little bit. But on the CW there was Heart of Dixie. That was a show you enjoyed.
That's not. I wouldn't call it a good show, but it's a show that I enjoy.
You enjoyed it?
I would call Gilmore Girls a good show.
Other small town shows, Twin Peaks.
Which was part of the inspiration for the quirky characters.
Oh, really?
In Gilmore Girls. Actually, throughout the show, different actors who appeared in Twin Peaks appear in Gilmore Girls.
Oh, yeah.
As kind of an homage.
And it also sets up that kind of dark plot line where Rory goes into the Red Room briefly.
No, Gilmore Girls has a very different tone from Twin Peaks. It's just kind of similar in the small town vibe.
Well, all right. A side note, too, we've got a 1-year-old kid. We were watching the show Llama Llama on Netflix earlier tonight, and that has a small town vibe, too. A little Stars Hollow vibe there.
With the little gazebo in
with
the
little
center
gazebo
of town,
and everything.
Like
I like to see those in
it's
different
also
shows.
about a single mom.
It is, yeah. So, hey, fun fact. If you got kids, Llama Llama, that's your show right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, also, side note, we watched this interview with Amy Sherman-Palladino. I was just thinking about it, too. She didn't look what I thought she would look like. She was like, I guess I thought she'd be older. They had a woman who directed the episode on, and that is kind of what I expected her to look like. Amy Sherman-Palladino looks like, just at least in the early 2000s, I guess, because that's when the interview was from. She looks like an alternative comedian from like the 90s, with a hat.
She's always kind of looked like that. She's always wearing that hat.
It's like a big, kind of almost like an Alice Cooper type of hat.
She's an eccentric,
a big black top hat type of thing.
Woman, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually, my mom and my sister were actually at the Gilmore Girls
reunion
panel. Yeah, the reunion panel that they did at
it's like South by Southwest or something.
South by Southwest a few years ago, and they got a picture with Amy Sherman-Palladino, and she's wearing that hat, so she just does it all the time.
Hey, it worked for her. It didn't work for Selena Meyer in Veep.
The hat was one of the main problems on the campaign trail.
If you didn't get that reference, go back and watch the pilot episode of Veep and listen to our episode about Veep from earlier. Anyway, hey, let's get into this episode. I'm going to read the episode description for our pilot episode of Gilmore Girls. When Rory is accepted to attend a prestigious prep school, Lorelai must swallow her pride and ask her wealthy parents for help paying the tuition. That sounds boring.
It does sound boring, but the execution is really fantastic. So we'll get into it.
Yeah, let's get into it. So we start off with a kind of a black screen with the title Gilmore Girls on the screen. That's only in that first episode, right? Where they do that, which is interesting because it's, eventually we'll have a title sequence as well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun though how it starts off with that, almost like at the beginning of a movie in a way. And we hear some music. We hear There She Goes
by the Laws.
We thought it was Sixpence None the Richer, but I guess Sixpence None the Richer also does that song.
Yeah, they covered it.
A few bands covered that.
Yeah.
You want to sing it for us?
Nope.
I'll sing it.
Okay.
There she goes, there she goes again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that.
That was beautiful.
I hope if you're listening to this podcast, there aren't other people around that are like, what are you listening to? Anyway, that's how it starts off there. We get a shot of Stars Hollow, this quaint New England town, which we mentioned before. And it's not actually shot in New England, right? I think it's shot in Burbank, California, I think is what it said.
Yeah, we went to this. Didn't we go to the studio, the lot where it was filmed?
I don't know. Did we? Did we see it?
We took a tour.
We went on the Universal Studios backlot tour.
We saw that, and later the same lot was used for, I think, Desperate Housewives.
Oh, we saw the Desperate Housewives
and also
houses.
I think for parts of Heart of Dixie, which we mentioned earlier. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, and another one. I think what's it called? Pretty Little Liars. I think that's also filmed on the same lot.
All right.
I wanted to say Big Little Lies. I get those confused.
Big Little Liars. Little Pretty Liars. All right. So we see a bunch of extras walking all over town in the pilot. You made a note in here that almost everyone is white.
Yeah, that is a little bit weird.
That is true. The only person of color in the pilot that I could see was the French guy.
Well, yeah,
I mean, he's black, but he's not just like French, and that's a person of color.
Yeah. But also there's Lane, who's
Korean,
and her
that's
mom.
right.
So it's not entirely white, but it is kind of, looking back at the show, it seems a little problematic how many white people are on it, and how few gay people of color show up on the show. It's a little weird, but it was 2000, so
times are different.
Yeah. Also, there are just so many extras in this pilot. There's a ton of people walking around this town.
Are there that many extras in the whole series?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of extras. There's always people walking around, but they're mostly characters we know. So this one, it's just there's people everywhere.
All right. So we see Lorelai Gilmore walking into Luke's diner, and
Lorelai is played by Lauren Graham. From Parenthood. I mean, she went on to star in Parenthood later after Gilmore Girls.
Yes.
But we covered Parenthood a few episodes ago.
We did. Was Lorelai or was Lauren Graham in anything before this that we know of? Did we look? I don't know if I looked.
I
mean, obviously smaller roles, probably.
Yeah, smaller roles here and there. And I guess she was actually attached to another show at the time that they were making Gilmore Girls. So they didn't think they were going to be able to get her for Gilmore Girls. But I guess that other show got canceled, or she somehow became free and they were able to get her.
That happens so much on all these things.
Yeah.
It really does. Anyway, she's wants to get some coffee there at Luke's diner, and she begs for coffee from Luke, which he reluctantly gives her. And do you want to talk a little bit about Luke and some of the information you got there?
So Luke is kind of this curmudgeonly man about Lorelai's age, so early to mid 30s,
and he's played by Scott Patterson.
Who
not Scott Peterson, one of those guys that murdered his wife. I think probably we see some of those documentaries.
Yeah, no, Scott Patterson, and so he's a little bit of a grumpy guy, but also a friendly guy who cares about Lorelai and her daughter.
I have a question for you. Is Luke hot?
He's not my type, but yeah, I think he is hot. I think you're supposed to think he's hot.
Yeah, I mean, not hot, oh man, she's got to hook up with him or whatever, but
mean, he's
definitely good looking.
guy.
Yeah. I think he's a hot guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the hat. Without the hat, I don't know so much.
Yeah, he's always wearing a hat, but he's always wearing a baseball cap, which is a kind of in honor of the actors being a baseball player in real life. He was a minor league baseball player. He actually played on a team that we have here in Columbus where we live, the Columbus Clippers.
Hey, there you go. Columbus Clippers, minor league baseball team. We just went to a Clippers game the other day.
We did.
Go Clippers.
Fun. Yeah. But anyway, Luke's part was initially written for a woman. Luke was going to be played by a woman.
It's a weird name for a female character.
Well, her name was going to be Daisy.
Okay.
And one of the notes that Amy Sherman-Palladino got on her script was that there are too many women in it. So they asked her to add more men.
That's
and
fair.
She changed Daisy into Luke. And kind of an important change because Luke will go on to play a big role in Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, and I don't want you to tell me either way, but in case people haven't watched the show, but I got a will they or won't they vibe between Lorelai and Luke.
Yeah, you get that right off the bat.
Yeah.
In this opening scene, which is really interesting when you know that it wasn't initially going to be a man.
Right?
At
Yeah,
all.
really. Yeah. Speaking of a will they or won't they, this Lorelai, she's a desirable woman to these men that are at the coffee shop there at the diner.
Yeah.
Our opening scene, and this is still our cold open here. Lorelai gets approached by a man, and he says to her, "I've never been here before, just passing through on my way to Hartford." And Lorelai says, "You're a regular Jack Kerouac," and the guy replies, confused a little bit. Yeah. So this show, you'll get a lot of these references very quick. They talk quick in this show.
Yeah.
A lot of these references, clear he didn't know what she was referring to. Jack Kerouac, of course, the author of On the Road, about people who are, on the road, as this guy is.
Right.
That's my quick summation of that book.
Yeah, but right away it's coming across that Lorelai is very quick-witted, very smart and funny, and it's kind of hard for the people around her to keep up with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Lorelai tells the guy that she's waiting for someone, which that someone turns out to be her daughter, Rory. Mm-hmm. And Rory's short for Lorelai, right?
Yes,
we'll get into that a little bit later. I think they talk about that. Anyways, while Lorelai goes and gets Rory some coffee, it's all very hard to say. Lorelai informs him that, the guy starts flirting with Rory then.
Mm-hmm. And so when Lorelai goes back to the table, she lets him know that's her daughter.
Yeah. And then the guy's like, "You don't look old enough to have a daughter, and you don't look like a daughter." And Lorelai says, "That's possibly very sweet of you. Thanks." And then the guy's like, "Well, I got a friend." And then Lorelai's like, "She's 16." And he's like, "Oh, we're gonna head out," which is kind of a creepy opening there, but it establishes a lot to things. What are some of the things that get established there, Gia?
Oh man, so much. So we talked about just kind of getting to know Lorelai and how quick-witted she is. Also, her chemistry with Luke, who owns the diner, and that will they or won't they relationship you were talking about. Got that right off the bat. The fact that she has a daughter who doesn't look old enough to have that daughter, and the close friendship between mother and daughter we see in this scene. Also, the guy had mentioned that he was just stopping through on his way to Hartford, so that kind of gives us a sense of where this town is, where Stars Hollow is, that it's in Connecticut near Hartford.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff that will come into play later is set up right in that opening.
There you go. So you got a small town, people passing through, hitting on 16-year-olds. You're saying this is not a dark vibe like a Twin Peaks or anything like that?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm getting some dark vibes there. No, it's not. It's very upbeat. There she goes, music in the beginning and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of the music, then we get the opening credits, and we've got the song. It's called "Where You Lead" by Carole King. It was originally written in 1970 and performed by Barbra Streisand. The lyrics were rewritten for Gilmore Girls and recorded as a duet by Carole King and her daughter, Louise Goffin. And that's That's kind of nice that it's a mother and a daughter singing the song there.
Yeah, because I guess the song was originally about like a romantic relationship, and so they rewrote the lyrics to be more about a mother and daughter.
There you go. This music is so funny. Like, just I like to sing along and dance with it. If you're gonna, I don't know the words. Yeah. So you had some other things in the notes.
And just so as that music's playing in the opening there, we're just getting scenes from the show like you would have in a lot of shows, opening credits. But one thing that you notice watching this show, and I think you especially notice in the opening credits where you're seeing scenes from a bunch of different episodes, is that there's kind of like this warm glow in the way that the show is shot. Would you agree with me that it's kind of like this rosy hue that the whole show has been filmed with? Like it's always like sunset or something.
I did not notice that.
Oh, it's always
sunset in Stars Hollow.
Well, no, it's always like warm colors, like kind of like fall. And
isn't it fall in the episode?
It is in this episode.
That's all I've seen.
But it lasts through at least the first few seasons. I think eventually it's not shot in that same way. But it's something that has always stood out to me and kind of helps establish this sort of cozy vibe of the show. Also, we'll see this throughout the show, but again, I kind of notice it when I'm seeing all these different scenes in the opening is, this is pre-smartphone small town life that we're seeing, and it just comes across as very quaint and like a whole different world.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost 20 years ago, but that really isn't that long ago in the grand scheme of things, but it feels like a long time ago. It feels like they're living in a different, even though they talk very quickly, a slower, gentler world.
That's true, yeah. Although I don't know how realistic the show gives across, a realistic vibe at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes shows, have that similar vibe too. Also, it's nostalgic in a way too, because we're around the same age that they're supposed to be in the show.
We are. I was in middle school when this came out, so a few years younger than Rory, and I was so excited for this show to come out. I remember like seeing the previews for it, and I was so excited, and I've loved it since the beginning.
Wow. I don't know if I was unaware of it, but I definitely didn't watch it. The only thing I was watching
I don't think you were the target audience.
I do not think I was.
I was.
Yeah. Well, I watched the WB sometimes in high school, but just on Thursday nights to watch SmackDown. So WWE. Okay. Anyway, let's get into this first scene after the opening sequence there. It is Independence Inn, and it's sort of like feels like a bed and breakfast, a little bigger than a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
Bread and breakfast? Bread. Yes. Anyway, and Lorelai runs the inn, is very busy, completely booked. There's a wedding party there. There's Michelle, who is the kind of the front desk guy, a rude Frenchman, is your description you've got there.
Yeah.
And there's also Drella, a rude harp player.
Yeah, a lot of rude
people there, yeah. Drella's played by Alex Borstein. Alex Borstein was originally cast as Sookie. We saw some footage of that from the unaired pilot.
We haven't met Sookie yet in this pilot, but we'll get to her. She plays a big role in the show.
Right, and anyway, we saw some of the unaired footage on the DVD bonus features. But anyway, she was originally cast as Sookie, but she had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. We think with Family Guy. That was around the same time. Alex Borstein is
Lois.
Right. Yeah. So Sookie is played by Melissa McCarthy. Sookie?
It's Sookie.
Sookie.
Yeah.
Why is it? What is that short for? Is that short for something? Is that a name?
It's a name.
I don't know about that. Anyway, in real life, you got some facts here. I'll let you read those.
In real life, Alex Borstein was married to Jackson Douglas, and he's the actor who plays Jackson on the show Gilmore Girls, who is a love interest of the character Sookie, who we're going to talk more about later.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier about the lack of diversity in the casting. Is Alex Borstein Asian?
I don't think.
She plays an Asian woman on Mad TV. Oh, man.
Really?
I don't know if that would fly in 2019.
Yeah, I don't
Unless
know.
she's Asian, in which case, I guess it might fly.
Think so,
I don't know. But if you don't know who Alex Borstein is, if you ever watched Mad TV, she's Miss Swan. I loved the sketches when I was in middle school.
And also, she's in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, right, yeah.
Big role in that.
And anyway, Lorelai is working hard and taking care of business. We see she's very confident and competent because of and not in spite of her quirkiness. That's a fun thing that you wrote there in the notes.
I see you're just reading my notes verbatim.
Well, you took the notes, and I wanted to kind of give you a break on talking a little bit, but you're like the expert on the show. I'm just I just watched the one episode.
Yeah, but yeah, we do in this scene. We just see Lorelai kind of resolving different issues at the inn, keeping things running.
She's definitely like a woman in charge.
Yeah,
I mean, she is a woman who is in charge, but she's like on it. She's the innkeeper.
Yeah, but as she's doing it, she's talking that sort of same quick-witted way that we saw her in the diner earlier, which is interesting that's how she conducts business as well.
Right.
So then her daughter Rory stops by the inn on her way to school, which we were talking about is kind of improbable that a kid
insane.
would have time to stop anywhere on the way to school. School starts very early.
High school starting at like 7:30, and this is always in TV shows. They do this. Has nobody ever gone to school before? You cannot go anywhere before high school. If anybody went to school, like high school at like 9:30, 10, let me know, because I want to work there. I'm an educator. I would like to not wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Anyway, is that the whole scene there? Is that what we got pretty much?
Yeah, well, Rory was just stopping by the inn to get stamps. She needs some stamps for some reason. She also gives her French paper to Michelle to look over.
And there you go. She's studious.
Yeah.
She wants to make sure her paper is good.
Yeah, and Lorelai is kind of teasing Rory about the big sweater she's wearing, and we kind of get a sense in this scene that Rory is not really like a typical teenager who like just cares about like clothes and boys and that kind of thing. She's very like academic minded, very, very smart, really cares about her schoolwork and isn't thinking too much about her appearance or anything like that.
Right, not yet.
Not yet.
Our next scene, we've got on the way to school. Rory and her best friend Lane are walking to school, and Lane is Korean American.
Yeah.
And
Lane, by the way, I don't think we said Rory is played by Alexis Bledel.
Alexis Bledel, who you might have seen in the movie Postgrad, if you are one of like 10 people who saw the movie Postgrad, which we did.
We did.
It was not good.
It was not. But we saw it like right after I had graduated from college, and it was about somebody graduating from college.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. But
although we looked it up, and like Alexis Bledel is like 7 or 8 years older than us, so she plays younger characters, which so does this character Lane.
Yeah, Lane, who is played by Keiko Agena, and she, I think, was in her late 20s or maybe even early 30s.
I think we looked it up, and she was born in like 1971, so what, 29, something like that?
Yeah. So
and she's playing like a sophomore in high school?
Yeah.
I think
but
sophomores.
She does look young. And so Rory, at least, Alexis Bledel, was kind of a newcomer to acting when she was cast on Gilmore Girls. She'd done some modeling, but hadn't done much acting, but they felt that she had the right vibe for the show. So that's how she got cast. Keiko Agena playing Lane, Rory's best friend. The character of Lane is based on Amy Sherman-Palladino's real-life best friend, Helen Pei, I think. Pei or Pai, who...
Also Korean,
and actually works on Gilmore Girls.
She's like the music supervisor or something.
Yeah,
I think that's what they said.
She does a lot of things on the show. I think music, also script supervising. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's nice. So it kind of opens up, and we've got Lane talking about how she listens to rock music but can't let her strict parents know. And she...
Well, she mentions both of her parents, and that's kind of funny because throughout the series we'll see Lane's mom a lot, but we never once see her dad. We don't really know if he's in the picture or not. We sometimes hear about him, but we never see him. It's kind of weird. Yeah.
Another weird thing I noticed is that Elaine is talking about being into rock music and stuff, and this is the year 2000, so it was a different time. But then she goes on to say, like, my parents don't like, I don't know, whatever they were talking about. So I don't think they would approve of me listening to Eminem. And it's like, Eminem? That's not rock music, but
Yeah.
the year 2000 was a different time. Side note too, as she's describing this, she's like changing clothes out of like what she wore out of the house into more hip and cool clothes.
Yeah, because Lane's parents, well, her mom is very strict.
Yeah.
And Lane kind of has to hide her life and interests from her mom.
Did you catch?
It's a different relationship from what Rory has with
It is.
Lorelai.
Did you catch the shirt that she's wearing?
What does it say?
It's a Woodstock 99 shirt.
Oh, really?
It's an
notice.
edgy choice there.
But
if,
Lane...
if you're not familiar with Woodstock 99, not good, guys. Not good.
But yeah, Lane is very into music. She will eventually have her own band on the show later on.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Hey, there you go. Well, she's got good taste listening to Eminem.
She has very eclectic taste.
Okay, all right, sure. And you know what? Some people like Eminem. That's fine.
Is it?
No, it's not. He's terrible, and
problematic.
everybody should have stopped listening to him in 8th grade.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what else did you want to say about this scene?
So in this scene, Lane mentions that her parents are making her go on this teen hayride that we see like a poster for that Rory and Lane walk by on the way to school.
You know what? I'll be more critical too of the show because you're a fan of the show and all that, and we're just breaking down a pilot. I didn't understand this hayride. This episode is September, and they mentioned later people don't go on hayrides in September. October, sure. November, certainly.
Maybe it's late September.
I don't know, man. I'm not sure. I got more issues with the timing on some of these things later. We'll get to it.
Okay.
But yeah, she's going on this hayride.
She's going on the hayride, and she's going with it's like a date that her parents have set up for her with a future Korean doctor, like another teenager, but his plans are to become a doctor.
Right.
And not just with him, but also his older brother, who's going to be chaperoning them. And when Lane tells Rory that, Rory's like, "You've got to be kidding me." And Lane's like, "Koreans never joke about future doctors." I thought that was a funny line.
Do you think he's chaperoning just because the parents are strict, or do you think it's similar to like when we watched the show Rami, which we covered?
I was thinking about Rami too. Yeah.
We covered earlier, and Rami on Hulu, but it's about a Egyptian American family, and they have chaperones.
Yeah.
Well, they don't always, but he goes on a date and they have a chaperone.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's more like that too. But that was probably more of a religious thing too. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Lane's parents being strict is partially a cultural
Could be
thing.
Although some
So-
people aren't even allowed to like date in high school too. So you know. Yeah. Anyway, so they've got that going on, and then we see next. Rory is in her English class.
Oh, well, before she gets to English class, when Rory and Lane are walking into the school, there's a guy kind of checking Rory out, but she doesn't notice him.
Oh,
and we'll
okay.
meet that guy later.
Is that guy the murderer?
Yeah. And the Twin Peaks murder.
Yes.
No, he's not.
Okay. All right. We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, next we got English class. They're doing an assignment on Huckleberry Finn. And this scene, I thought this scene felt very true to life as a teacher, because the teacher gives an assignment, is basically like, you can either read or write the essay if you're done reading, but whatever you do it quietly, which is pretty much that would be a perfect day if they did that quietly, which also these students did not really do it quietly.
No.
There was like some girls that were passing nail polish back and forth, and then when it gets to Rory, they're like, what's she doing? Is she like...
She's like writing in her notebook.
Yeah, they're like, is she writing in a diary or a love note or a slam book?
Yeah,
Is a slam book like the thing on Mean Girls?
Yeah,
Is that
I
what
think so. It's that seems like very much a line of like the times, or I don't think anyone really had slam books.
I don't think anybody
maybe
did.
they existed for like a very brief period in history, but
anyway, you can see in that scene that Rory doesn't really fit in this public school.
yeah,
and
because what she's writing is the assignment.
she's doing the assignment
Yeah, and
because
so
that's what she should be doing.
yeah, and all the other girls are kind of shocked by that.
Right. And next we see a shot back at the inn, in the kitchen, and Suki, played by Melissa McCarthy, which, Melissa McCarthy goes on to have a huge career.
She does.
She's got a movie coming out soon, The Kitchen.
Yeah, mostly playing characters who are very different from her character on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
weird for me to see, having like grown up watching her on Gilmore Girls
That's
and knowing
true.
her as Suki.
Although I feel like she was playing like those outrageous characters for a few years, where she like Bridesmaids and all those, where to build up her.
I know Bridesmaids is a movie a lot of people love. I did not care for it, and I really didn't care for Melissa McCarthy in it.
I've never seen it, but that was like kind of building her career. But she's been in more diverse roles recently. We saw that one movie though. I thought it sucked, but I think it got nominated for some things.
Yeah.
Can You Ever Forgive Me? I think is what it was called.
Yeah,
I can't.
We didn't
Melissa
think
McCarthy.
it was a very good movie, but everybody else thought it was great. So I don't know.
Anyway, most people just didn't hear of it.
It's
but,
not like we're critics or anything.
We very much are. We're criticizing things right now. No, but she's got that new movie, The Kitchen, coming out too. It's a different vibe too. She's like a female gangster lady or something with Elizabeth Moss, and I don't know who else is in it, but. Anyway, we see Suki. She has fallen in the kitchen. She's bumbling a lot in this. Bumbling, is that the right word? She's like causing things to break and catch on fire and all that throughout this.
Suki is the chef there at the inn. She's also Lorelai's best friend. She's very clumsy at the beginning of the series. We see that a lot in this pilot. And then that's kind of a character trait that fades over time. She doesn't come across as super clumsy later on.
I feel like those jokes would get old because it's like every other scene she's in, like something's catching on fire or something like that. Like, why is she? I mean, I guess she's her friend, but come on, you can't be. This is a workplace.
Right now, this is like her only character trait is clumsiness. But I feel like as they develop the character more over time, we get to know her a little bit better. We no longer have to rely on her clumsiness to tell stories. So like I mentioned, eventually she'll have a lot of love interest on the show, Jackson. We don't see him in this episode, but Suki is a big part of this series moving forward.
Does Melissa McCarthy leave the show at all, like to go do other stuff, or is she in it till the end?
She is in it till the end.
All right, because she didn't really get big until Bridesmaids really was the big. Well, I don't know if Mike and Molly came out before then. I'm not really sure.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I forgot about Mike and Molly.
You know, they're forgettable. I never watched Mike or Molly.
Yeah.
And anyway, the next scene is that we are.
We missed.
So of course you're gonna miss stuff.
I'm a big fan of this show. We got to go through it in detail.
Yes.
That we missed. So Lorelai comes into the kitchen and talks with Suki about how she needs her to like be a little less clumsy and a little more reliable, because eventually they want to open an inn together.
That's
Lorelai
a life
Suki.
dream that they have.
That's a life dream they've got. And that is a theme that will come up later on in the show. There's a big story arc around them opening an inn together, many series or many seasons down the road. So it's kind of cool that they established that this early on.
Yeah. All right, now next scene?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, next scene is at Kim's Antiques, which is Lane's family's antique store, also their house. They live there too. Yes. And basically, it's after school. Rory and Lane are going in there. It's a very cluttered antique shop. Basically, we establish here that Lane's mom kind of disapproves of Rory. You know, it's kind of like a friend that she doesn't want her kid to have, because Rory has a single mom, mom is single, had her as a teenager, that kind of stuff.
And Lane says that her mom doesn't trust unmarried women, which is funny, but and seems weird, but also like I grew up in a school district that was fairly culturally diverse, and I had parents who were divorced, and I remember that being an issue that would come up. Sometimes my friends' parents had an issue with the fact that my parents were divorced.
Really?
Yeah, which seemed a little weird to me.
But it's weird.
But yeah, it came up.
Huh. It was not an issue with any of my friends or anything like that. Nobody. I mean, I had friends that had divorced parents, but nobody was like, nobody frowned upon them.
Oh. Well, I encountered it.
What do we got next? Back at the inn? Is that where we're at? Yeah. Back at the end, do you want to explain what's happening?
Oh, yeah. So this is another scene where we just see Suki kind of bustling around the kitchen, knocking things over and kind of starting little fires. And her staff there in the kitchen is like chasing after her and trying to like put out the fires as she starts them, the literal and figurative fires that she's causing. And then Lorelai kind of rushes into the kitchen with news that Rory got into Chilton Chilton is this fancy prep school that's going to put Rory on the path to Harvard, which is where she wants to go.
There you go. I wonder if a lot of people that live in like the Northeast New England like have that goal of going to Harvard. I wonder, because it was never anything that anybody. And I had at least one student that went to Harvard. Mm-hmm. Very exciting. I credit myself in that. But I don't recall anybody like being like, I want to get into Harvard.
Yeah, a few people that I know went to Ivy League schools, but it certainly wasn't like the norm of what people around here were planning on. Also, just going to a prep school, I think, is maybe more common in New England than it is around here.
I can't even. The only prep schools that we have around here are just like Catholic schools, I think. Yeah. As far as I know, at least. Yeah. And we live around Columbus, Ohio.
Right.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, Chilton, where Rory is going to be going, is not like a boarding school. It's not like she's going to live there. It's just a prep school. A fancy private school in Hartford, which is a little bit outside of Stars Hollow, like we established.
Yeah.
And so Lorelai is kind of like reading the admissions letter that Rory got from the prep school, or that Lorelai got about Rory going to the school, and it mentions that she got in due to your enthusiastic pursuit of her enrollment. That's what the letter says.
And Lorelai says, I offered to do the principal, which is a joke.
Yeah. And then so Lorelai's just talking about how great it is that Rory got into this school, and she says she can finally go to Harvard like she's always wanted and get the education that I never got and do the things that I couldn't. Then I can resent her for it, and we can finally have a normal mother-daughter relationship.
There you go.
Yep, so that's a quote that tells us a lot about Lorelai's background.
Yeah, because Lorelai did not go to college.
No.
We'll find out later she's taking some business classes right now. Mm-hmm. And the reason that she did not is that she went to, well, hold on, I had a pun there that I was going to go. Did she go to Chilton too?
No.
She didn't? Did she just go to public school?
I don't know if she went to public school. She might have gone to a private school, but not Chilton as far as I know.
I had a joke about how she had Chilton. Like children. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. I apologize.
Oh, man. But no, Lorelai did get pregnant in high school when she was 16 and did not go on to college because of that. Even though Lorelai is very smart.
Right.
Yeah. So then Rory comes in and Lorelai kind of excitedly gives her this plaid skirt. And Rory looks at it and she's like, I'm going to be in a Britney Spears video.
Guys, for our younger listeners, let me explain some things. Back in the year 2000, there was this singer named Britney Spears, and she was, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, no, like the Baby One More Time video.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, what a different time this is. Even just mentioning music videos.
Yeah, and this, if you haven't noticed, I think we've mentioned a few of them, but there's a lot of pop culture references in Gilmore Girls, and not just pop culture, also like history, literature, like all kinds of, there's a million references per episode, and most of them are going to be over a lot of people's heads. A lot of them are over my head.
A lot of them were over the actors' heads.
Yeah.
They mentioned that on one of the panels that we watched there, where Alexis Bledel, who was, fairly young at the time, was just like, I didn't know what we were talking about most of the time. And they didn't have phones. They couldn't just look it up either.
Yeah. So it's unlikely that anybody is going to know all of the references in every single episode. You kind of pick and choose your categories. I'm better with the literary ones and the TV ones, I think, and not great with some of the others. But anyway, so Lorelai tells her, no, you're not going to be in a Britney Spears video. You're going to Chilton. And Rory is ecstatic about this. She really wants to go to this school. She's going to be starting on Monday, Lorelai tells her. And Rory sounds completely happy about this. No issues at all leaving behind her old school.
Now, I've got a side note here.
Okay.
So I think that Rory is like a sophomore in high school. I'm not sure. She might be a freshman, but it sounds like she's maybe a sophomore. So this spot at Chilton has just opened up just now in like the middle of September.
Yeah, I know.
What's happening
weird.
here? It's a little weird
that it like didn't happen at the beginning of the school year.
When did she apply? Like, I don't even get what's going on. Also, like,
I don't know if there was like a wait list situation.
There could be a wait list.
Spot opened up, but they don't mention that. It is kind of weird.
It's a little weird. I mean, we've talked about before, like what are the spinoffs that we'd like to see on shows and things like that. I want to know what happened to this person that left.
Oh, the person whose spot she's taken?
Yeah.
Nothing.
I want to know their backstory.
Maybe they got pregnant, dropped out.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
We don't know.
Maybe they got killed by Bob?
Bob.
Yeah.
And from Twin Peaks.
Making a lot of Twin Peaks references here.
Spoilers for Twin Peaks.
That doesn't spoil anything. Nobody even knows what's happening in Twin Peaks.
No.
Anyway,
That's true.
Anyway, the next shot is at the Gilmore Girls houses. The Gilmore Girls house is what you have in the notes. Lorelai's on the phone with financial services at Chilton. Basically, Lorelai lives a modest life, and she's basically seeing if there's any kind of way that they can not pay, all of the money right now, because they need to pay the tuition like right now before she can
for the first
enroll.
quarter.
And she mentions like there's a lot of zeros after that 5.
Yeah.
Maybe she's joking around. The person on the other end of the line, not joking around.
No. And we only hear Lorelai's end of the conversation, but we can kind of glean from her side of things that the person on the other end has told her, no, you've got to pay the full tuition by Monday before she can start.
Right. There's a fun line in there too about how Monday, Lorelai says, Monday just doesn't give me a lot of time to pull a bank job. And then you only hear her side of the conversation. No, a bank job is robbing a bank. Like clearly this woman's like did not understand.
Not following the jokes. Yeah.
How many zeros do you think are after that 5 for a quarter of college or a quarter of this high school thing? I'm assuming 3. Yeah?
That's what I'm thinking.
That is a lot. I mean, I think that's probably what it is, but
yeah.
How many quarters do you think they have? They
3?
don't have.
I would guess
we had
3.
3 in college. Man, that's a lot. Y'all,
yeah, and this is in college.
High school is free, guys. I don't think you need that private school education. You'll be fine. Clearly, Rory was already smart. I would have just left her there, wrap up the series after that first episode. Boom, she lives her life, etc. Done.
Yeah. But so this scene is setting up kind of the central conflict of the episode and kind of the whole series is that Lorelai is sort of struggling to afford the life that she wants for her daughter. Rory's education. Obviously, Rory's very smart, and Lorelai wants her to be able to pursue her life dreams. But how are they going to finance it?
How are they going to finance it? Well, they'll do what every middle to upper middle class white person does and ask their parents for money because they always have money.
That's right.
I've done it. You've done it.
We've all done it.
We've all done it.
Yeah.
But fortunately for Lorelai, her parents are mega rich. Our parents are normal.
Right.
Normal rich. Not rich, rich, but they do fine. Yeah. They're not poor.
Yeah.
We're all doing okay.
Everybody's fine. Well, not everybody.
Not everybody. But Lorelai's parents are mega rich.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I want to know what her parents, we'll get to their house and stuff like that. But like her parents like work in insurance or something like that. Do they own the insurance company?
I think her dad is a very high up guy in an insurance
They're
business.
super rich. They've got maids and stuff.
Insurance people make a ton of money. Like
I guess so.
Actuaries.
Actuary. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But so like you said, eventually Lorelai is going to have to ask her parents for money, but she really doesn't want to do this. And we see leading up to her doing that, a conversation between her and Suki where Lorelai's saying, there's got to be a way to pay for Rory's school. There's got to be something I haven't thought of yet. And Suki is the one who kind of brings up, you could call your parents, and Lorelai doesn't even want to consider that possibility. But seeing again how excited Rory is about going to school and at Chilton and knowing she has no other way of paying for it, she kind of resigns herself to go and ask for money. So that's what we see in the next scene is Lorelai showing up at a great big mansion. Yeah. And this is her parents' house, Richard and Emily Gilmore.
Yeah, and who are those played by?
Richard is, let's see.
Isn't Edward Herman?
Edward Herman, and Emily is Kelly Bishop.
Has Edward Herman been in other things? I mean, I know he has, but what are some things that he's been in? Do we know? Because we watched an interview, and he talked about how when he was sort of approached with this role, that he was talking about how his fan base has kind of aged out. Like they were all much older, and that this would appeal to a different audience. Which really, I mean, this is probably, I mean, at least for people our age, what this man is most known for. He's passed away in recent years, I think. But he very much comes across like a old type of actor.
Well, according to his Wikipedia page, he's best known for his portrayal of Franklin D. Roosevelt on television. And also
on television? Was he FDR in just a TV show?
I
what
guess.
Was the show? Oh my gosh, just pulling up Wikipedia.
Eleanor and Franklin from 1976. Also, Eleanor and Franklin, the White House years in 1977.
Yeah, this is a different type of role, I suppose.
Yeah,
playing FDR.
He was also a ubiquitous narrator for historical programs on the History Channel. I'm directly quoting from Wikipedia. I love ubiquitous
narrators. Those are my favorite kind of narrators.
And PBS productions like Nova.
He does have a voice that I enjoy a lot.
Also a spokesman for Dodge Automobiles in the 1990s.
Well, look at that.
Yeah, and he was a theater actor before all of that as well.
Who wasn't?
Yeah, and Kelly Bishop, Emily Gilmore, other than recognizing her from Gilmore Girls, of course, I recognize her from... she plays Baby's mom in Dirty Dancing.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Also, later on, after Gilmore Girls, she went on to have a part in Bunheads, which is another show that Amy Sherman-Palladino created.
There you go. So Lorelai shows up at her mother's house, and again, this mansion. Her mom answers the door and says, "Is it Easter already?" So you can see they've got this strained relationship, only see each other on holidays. I think later her dad says, "I didn't realize it was Christmas," or something like that. Basically she's got to ask them for money, and she does not want to. She kind of talks around it for a little bit, and
yeah, but even before she says she needs money, her dad can tell that that's why he's there. He's like, "Oh, you need money."
Right. Yeah. But she explains she needs money not for herself but for her daughter Rory, and explains what's going on with Chilton and all that kind of stuff. And
her parents are excited that Rory got into Chilton. They want to help out with her education.
It's clear that the relationship is strained, but at this point, I mean, we kind of understand it's the pregnancy type of thing, the teenage pregnancy.
Yeah, you can kind of guess that, but we don't know too much.
But they seem like good people. Like, it's clearly like everybody seems like they're all like good people in this situation. But so they decide to give her the money, but there's a couple of conditions.
Yeah. So
one, they've got to have dinner every Friday night with Lorelai and Rory at the mansion there.
Emily says, "Since we're now financially involved in your life, I want to be actively involved in your life," and that's why they've got to come over for these weekly dinners so that they can kind of get to know Lorelai again and get to know their granddaughter better, which seems reasonable.
It does. That's a thing. Parents just want to be in their kids' lives.
They really do.
That's nice. But so Lorelai's not super excited about that, but is willing to do it because of the money.
Yeah.
Did you want to say anything else about that scene?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, cool. Next, we are back at school. Rory's clearing out her locker because tomorrow's her last day.
Yeah.
And as she's clearing it out, she I think she dropped some stuff or something, and she notices someone standing very close to her. She kind of bumps into, maybe, I'm not sure. And she says, "You're like Ruth Gordon, just standing there with a tannis root. Make a noise." And the guy that she bumps into replies, "Rosemary's Baby." And Rory's surprised that guy got her reference. I didn't get a reference. I would assume this is a total weirdo.
Yeah, so Rory was, she had been talking about a character in Rosemary's Baby, and she's impressed that the guy that she bumped into knew what she was talking about. So that kind of gets her to notice him. Also, she notices him because when she finally looks at him, he's very attractive.
Yeah, this is Dean.
This is Dean.
Played by
Jared Padalecki, who after Gilmore Girls went on to star on Supernatural. He's still on that. That's been on forever.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you follow him on Instagram, right?
I do. Yeah, he was one of my crushes when I was middle school. So he again, his name's Dean. He tells Rory that he has just moved to Stars Hollow from Chicago. He's like the new guy in town, and he says he's noticed her. He's been paying attention to her.
That's not what he says.
What does he say?
He says, "I've been watching you."
Oh,
I think that comes. I don't know if that comes up a little. Well, we mentioned earlier that there's a dark underbelly in Stars Hollow, and no, there's not. But he's very sweet in his description of all of that. So that's nice.
Yeah.
And she's Rory's very like, she's kind of like, you've been watching me? Why have you been watching me? But side note, Rory's kind of a hottie too.
Yeah.
And sometimes girls don't realize that sometimes guys are, watching them.
Yeah.
I used to watch you.
Really?
Well, we had a class together in college.
Yeah.
I recognized you. I looked you up on Facebook.
Oh man, I looked you up too.
And then eventually we met.
Yeah.
At a party. It was beautiful.
It was.
Yeah. You didn't make any dumb Rosemary's Baby references or anything like that.
I did not.
I wouldn't know what you were talking about. I would have thought you were a weirdo or something like that. Anyway, and basically there's some stuff. It's an important plot point here is that Dean mentions that he's looking for a job. He just moved from Chicago. He needs to find a job, and Rory mentions he should check with Miss Patty. Miss Patty is a dance instructor in town, and there's a whole lot going on. There's a small town type of things, but that's going to come up later.
Yeah,
so we'll come back to that.
And she's not suggesting that he become a dancer or anything, but
not that we would mind if he was a dancer.
I wouldn't mind it at all.
Depends on what kind of dancer.
But Rory just says Miss Patty kind of knows everything that's going on in town, so she'll know if anyone's looking. So as we'll get to know Miss Patty more throughout the series, but she's kind of like she's very nice, but she's kind of like a busybody. She's like pays attention to what everybody's doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so Rory and Dean walk together to Miss Patty's. Rory's gonna show him where she is.
Yeah. Look at that, meeting a guy.
Yeah.
Next, we're at Luke's diner again, but the vibe is a little different here between Lorelai and Rory. Basically, Lorelai and Rory are eating dinner. Some strained, awkward conversation. Lorelai tells Rory they're having dinner at their grandparents' tomorrow night, which Rory thinks is kind of weird. Rory seems to be picking fights with Lorelai. Doesn't really want to go to Chilton anymore, which is like a shock to Lorelai.
Yeah, that really comes out of left field for Lorelai, and Rory's saying like, oh, it's so expensive and the school year's already started and it's far away, and she's got like a whole list of reasons she doesn't want to go, but none of those kind of ring true to Lorelai because those have all been true all along, but it's always been important to Lorelai and Rory that Rory go to Chilton regardless of those things.
And so we know, and we'll find out in a second, we'll get to it, but we know it's because Rory met Dean.
Yeah.
But I mean, didn't they just like talk for a minute? Is Rory automatically in love?
He's very tall and he's very handsome.
Okay.
He's
got kind of a cool voice too.
He's got a very cool voice.
Yeah, it's sort of an accent. He kind of talks like this.
Yeah.
That was not a good voice.
And we didn't mention it, but when Rory and Dean were talking in that last scene, Dean was saying how he had like noticed Rory like reading books, and which is a big part of Rory's character is that she's very studious and very well read, and it seems like Dean really noticed and appreciated that about her. So I think that is like when someone you like something that you see as being very important to you, likes that about you. I think that feels special, and you want to kind of hold on to that.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
So next, where are we at here? What's next? Oh, we haven't mentioned. Okay, so after Lorelai and Rory are kind of fighting at the diner, so they just get out of there. They're like, we got to get out of here, and they walk by Patty's dance studio.
Yes.
She's outside. She's smoking while she's teaching her class because it's it's a charming small town.
Yeah.
And Patty mentions, oh, I found basically she says, I found a job for your friend, for your male friend. And Lorelai's like, male friend? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
And Rory's like, what? Okay. Trying to be kind of secretive about it.
Yeah. But Lorelai instantly knows what's going on.
Well, because Lorelai herself, when she was a young high school lady, got infatuated with a man and eventually got pregnant. Well, not a man, another high school guy, and eventually got pregnant.
Yeah.
And so she knows the path that her daughter is now on, history repeating itself. And basically what happens the rest of the episode, Rory gets pregnant, and now she has her own Gilmore situation.
That's not what happens in the episode.
Okay.
But potential spoilers for later on.
Whoa, really?
Maybe. I'm not gonna.
You're the one spoiling it. I'm just making up random stuff. Is the Twin Peaks stuff real too?
Yes.
Okay.
It's all, the owls are not what they seem.
All right. Anyway, so that's kind of the gist there. Then they go back to the house too, and I think everybody listens to Macy Gray, and they basically get upset and go to sleep.
Well,
there's a lot of Macy Gray in this episode too. I forgot to mention it earlier, but
yeah, as they walk home and then as they get back to the house, Lorelai's trying to get Rory to tell her about this guy. At first, Lorelai's very angry that Rory is willing to give up on children because she met some guy at Stars Hollow High. And one thing Lorelai says is, does he have a motorcycle? Because if you're going to throw your life away, he better have a motorcycle, which is kind of an interesting line because later on in the show, we'll meet Rory's dad, Christopher. And when we meet him, the first time we see him, he's on a motorcycle. So
there you go.
Lorelai kind of projecting her own experiences onto Rory a little bit, and how I don't think Lorelai feels like she threw her life away, but I think she feels like her parents think she threw her life away in getting pregnant and having Rory. So we see that coming out a little bit in this scene where Lorelai is talking about how Rory is going to repeat some of her mistakes, and eventually in that scene, Lorelai kind of tries to take a softer approach too and just get Rory to talk to her and tell her about this guy she met, but Rory's like not having any of it. She's just kind of being a jerk and doesn't want to talk to her mom at all. And like you said, Rory then puts on her Macy Gray CD, and then Lorelai like goes in the other room and puts on her Macy Gray CD. So that kind of shows us how similar they are.
There you go. Yeah. A lot of Macy Gray.
Yeah.
Next, we see back at the inn kitchen, Suki causing another explosion. Lorelai is stressed. Lorelai explains that she and Rory never fight. Rory comes to the inn still in a bad mood. Suki sets some stuff on fire. People put out the fires, etc., etc. And then I guess the second to last scene here, Richard and Emily's, the Gilmore Senior, their house.
Yeah.
Lorelai's parents' house, the mansion.
This will be our first Friday night dinner. Friday night dinners are a thing that happens a lot on Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, and Rory's going to be going to school at Chilton on the following Monday. So,
And Rory's still not sure why they're going to see her grandparents.
Yeah, because she doesn't know that they're borrowing money.
Yeah, Lorelai didn't want her to know about that.
Right. Basically, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, so Lorelai and Rory, as they're kind of standing at the door to Richard and Emily's, they're kind of bickering a little bit, and Lorelai asks that Rory at least be civil through dinner, and then later on the way home you can pull a Menendez, she tells Rory, which is a reference, a very dark reference to the Menendez brothers who killed their parents back in the 90s.
Yikes.
So yeah, another one of those references,
which is crazy because she actually does kill Lorelai at the end of the episode.
No, this show is not dark. Okay, so anyway, we see them go in. Emily and Richard, they don't seem super close to Rory, but they do seem more warm toward her than they do toward Lorelai in how they talk to her. And they kind of toast to Rory entering Chilton, and then they go have dinner in this kind of fancy dining room. And while they're eating dinner, Richard brings up Christopher. Again, Christopher is Rory's dad. And he mentions that Christopher called the other day and was talking about an internet startup he has that's about to go public, and is talking about how Christopher is very smart and Rory must take after him, which is rude, yeah. Hurtful to Lorelai.
Isn't it kind of weird that the baby daddy keeps up with the in-laws?
A little, yeah. I would say it's kind of weird, but we'll find out more about everybody later on in the series. But the Gilmores and the Haydens, Christopher's family, were were very close prior to to the pregnancy, and Lorelai and Christopher dated for a while before the pregnancy and before everything kind of got sour between all the family members. So it's kind of weird, but it's not super weird.
All right.
Yes. Okay. So but that comment of Richard's hurts Lorelai's feelings, and she kind of storms off into the kitchen, and Emily follows her, and they end up fighting in there, and they fight about how Richard said that thing about Christopher, and Emily saying, well, your dad's very fond of Christopher, and Lorelai's like, well, that's interesting because he wasn't very fond of him when he knocked me up in high school, which is a good point.
That's true.
But then Emily goes on to say, well, Christopher was willing to get married and kind of stay on the path that we wanted you guys to follow, whereas you were not. So that tells us more about the background there. When Lorelai got pregnant, her parents and Christopher's parents had planned that Lorelai and Christopher would get married, and Christopher would just go on to work for Lorelai's dad, and they would kind of follow that path. And Christopher was willing to do that, whereas Lorelai didn't feel like that was going to be the right life for them, and felt like her parents and his parents were trying to control them, and she wanted to kind of do things on her own. And so as Emily says here in this scene, Lorelai took Rory and moved away from them and kind of cut them out of her life. Lorelai took Rory as a baby and moved to Stars Hollow and became a maid at this inn, in the Independence Inn. Eventually went on to work her way up to manager of that inn, which is where she's at now. But since then, her parents have not played much of a role in her life, and that really hurt them. So that's what the strained relationship is. Does that make sense to you?
I guess. Yeah, there's a lot there. I guess you got to remember these characters talk really fast. So they get a lot of info out there.
Yeah, there's, when we were watching interviews about this show, I think they said there's usually about 80 pages worth of dialogue on Gilmore Girls, whereas like a typical hour-long show would have maybe like 50 pages.
Yeah.
So they're really cramming a lot in, and the characters talk very fast, especially Lorelai and Rory, but also everybody is talking quickly.
They do.
And we're getting a lot of information in this pilot.
Yes. Are we on to the final scene?
Yeah, the only other thing is that Rory is overhearing this conversation.
Oh, right. So now she knows that her mom kind of did a lot, to get her to go to Chilton by, confronting her parents, swallowing her pride a little bit, and asking for money.
Yeah, because we also hear in that scene Lorelai saying that she wasn't too proud to ask her parents for money there.
Sometimes when you got those life dreams, you gotta ask for money.
Yeah, you gotta do what it takes.
And so the final scene at Loose Diner, we noticed one thing too. It was a earlier scene at Loose Diner, but they do like a sort of the establishing shot of Luke's Diner.
Of like the outside of Luke's Diner, but you can see in through the window.
Yeah, and you can see Rory and Lorelai laughing and smiling.
Uh-huh.
But it was like the establishing shot for that. Earlier in the episode when they were fighting, they used that establishing shot, and it's like they're laughing and smiling, but then you see them and they're wearing different clothes and they're not laughing or smiling.
Yeah. And that scene, that establishing shot actually comes from this scene we're about to see.
Yes.
Yeah. Where Rory and Lorelai have made up after that dinner because Rory has seen what her mom was willing to do for her and for her education, and so she kind of like stops being a jerk and agrees to go to Chilton, and also ends up telling her mom about Dean, and they just kind of have a pleasant conversation about it.
We also see Luke in this part. Luke is wearing a collared shirt and not wearing a hat, and Lorelai comments that he looks nice. He says he had a meeting with the bank earlier. I'm assuming just because he runs his own business and stuff like that, but that part really set up that will they or won't they for me, where it was like, oh, she's commenting on how he looks. He's a little curmudgeon-y, but I could see what's going on here.
Right.
Yeah. And they order some coffee, some chili fries. They're talking, kind of fades away. We hear some music too. There's a lot of music throughout this, which you can find some Spotify playlists of this as well. And I noticed the lyrics in the last song that was playing was something like
Our Little Corner of the World.
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It is.
And that's pretty much the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
So look, I know you like it.
I love it.
I am a guy who has never really watched it, although I'm familiar. I've seen a lot of episodes, really.
Yeah.
But first off, I'll say excellent pilot.
Yeah.
It does a lot. It's very interesting. I think that, you know what I think, like for me, would I recommend watching the show? Probably not necessarily, like just because it's not really what would appeal to me, you know, in that kind of way. Although I would say...
But would you recommend it to people who aren't necessarily like you? Like...
I would recommend it to women who are like around our age and are like early 30s that grew up around this time but never watched it. Sure. But I think that if this show came out now and had, instead of 7 seasons that are all like 20 episodes or something like that, are they all 20 episodes? I think they are.
Yeah,
I could look, they were all like 22
that.
episodes or something.
Yeah.
And I know they had that like little miniseries thing where they had 4 movies a few years ago.
Yeah, 4 like 1.5 hour episodes.
Right. But I think if it came out, if it was like on Netflix and there was 4 seasons and they all had 8 episodes, or 5 seasons that all had 8 episodes, then I could say like, maybe I'll see where this is going to see where it wraps up. I just feel like shows from that time period, I just can't get into it. Like, I could be like, I enjoy this show all right, but I'm not going to watch like 100 episodes of this.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of this show, but I'm only a fan of the first 3 seasons of the show. The first 3 seasons of this show I love. The 4th season I think is okay. And I think seasons 5, 6, and 7 and the miniseries are pretty terrible.
Well, there you go.
If I'm being perfectly honest.
But I do think it was an excellent pilot.
So when I rewatch it, I only watch the first 4 seasons. Yeah, it is an excellent pilot. It establishes
good?
So much.
Is it better than the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel pilot?
I prefer it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel too, but Gilmore Girls just has a really special place in my heart.
Yeah.
And I would always just watch it with my mom and my sister, and it's just like a special show for us.
You know what has a special place in my heart?
What?
The movie Happy Gilmore, which leads us into a game that we're going to play, Gia.
All right.
Gia, this game is called Gilmore Girls or Happy Gilmore.
All right.
I'm going to read you 10 quotes.
Okay.
You need to tell me if they are from Gilmore Girls.
Okay.
Or from the movie Happy Gilmore, starring
Interesting.
Adam Sandler.
Okay.
If it's a Gilmore Girls quote, say Gilmore Girls. If it's a Happy Gilmore quote, say Happy Gilmore.
Okay.
All right. I am never good at keeping track of the score on this. So you might have to do it for me. I'm not sure. There's going to be 10 of them. We'll see how many you get right. I do not know if these are notable quotes from the show because these are just what came up when I searched Gilmore Girls quotes.
Okay.
I do know that these are notable quotes from the movie Happy Gilmore.
Okay.
Have you seen the movie Happy Gilmore?
I think we watched it once, didn't we?
You think we watched it? You would remember.
Wait, that's the one with Bob Barker?
Yes.
Yes, we watched at least.
Did we make out during it?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I would say that's the only way that Happy Gilmore is tolerable.
Well, that's not true. I've seen this movie many times. But anyway, here we go. Gilmore Girls or Happy Gilmore.
Okay.
It was a great kiss. If one of us had been a frog, it would have had some seriously impressive consequences.
That's Gilmore Girls.
That is Gilmore Girls. Why don't you just go home? That's your home. Are you too good for your home? Answer me.
Happy Gilmore?
That's Happy Gilmore. I'm stupid. You're smart. I was wrong. You were right. You're the best. I'm the worst. You're very good looking. I'm not attractive.
Happy Gilmore?
That's also Happy Gilmore. All right. Now, what's on the agenda for today? I hear there's a shipment of plutonium coming in on the docks, and I thought we could dress up as nuns, and you could fake a stigmata, and you could put this plutonium under your habit.
Gilmore Girls.
Do you know when that quote is from? Because I was like, what? I'm assuming they're referencing some stuff, but that's fun.
But I'm familiar enough with Gilmore Girls that I can guess.
All right, okay. I would like a cheeseburger with a side of cheeseburger, and see if they can make me a cheeseburger smoothie.
Oh, man. I can see that being on Gilmore Girls, but I don't specifically remember it. So Happy Gilmore.
That one was Gilmore Girls. You are 4 out of 5 right now. Okay. Doing fantastic.
Thank you.
Next one. Hey, why don't I just go eat some hay, make things out of clay, lay by the bay? I just may. What do you say?
Happy Gilmore?
That's Happy Gilmore as well. I am attracted to pie, but I do not feel the need to date pie.
Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. These all feel like they could be either one. What? Friends listen to Endless Love in the Dark.
Happy Gilmore.
That's also Happy Gilmore. Hey, my girlfriend is dead, you know. She fell off a cliff and died on impact.
Happy Gilmore?
Yes, that's also Happy Gilmore. And the last one, if it was physically possible to make love to a hot beverage, this would be the one.
Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls. You got 9 out of 10.
Wow.
Also, doesn't it seem like the Gilmore Girls ones were a little bit more risque, I think, than some of the Happy Gilmore ones? Talking about making love to beverages and things like that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, cool.
Yeah.
Hey, good job. That was Gilmore Girls or Happy Gilmore.
Thank you.
We're going to have to watch Happy Gilmore, though, I think.
No, we're not.
We'll see. We'll see. Well, hey, look, guys, that was fun talking about Gilmore Girls. Mm-hmm. That's your dream, to just get me to talk about Gilmore Girls with you for an hour. Are you going to watch
the rest of the series with me?
I think I already told you.
The first 4 seasons. Just the first 4 seasons.
We'll see. You can put it on.
We can make out.
But then I'm not really watching it. Okay, yes, we'll make out. Yes. All right. If you want to.
All right, good.
Anyway, look, hey, next week we're going to be talking about, I would say, a similar show. No, that's not what I meant. A show from the same time period.
Yeah.
Not a similar show at all, but though it is about family.
Yes,
and the issues that you have with your life dreams and your tricky situations and things like that.
I would say this is a trickier life path to navigate than Gilmore Girls.
So next week, we're going to be talking about a show, actually, that we've not seen at all, except for the pilot, but it's an older show. We watched the pilot, and this was based on a critically acclaimed show, based on a suggestion from a fan out there on Twitter, tweeted at us. Grant, thank you.
Thanks, Grant.
Yeah, and a fellow OU Bobcat, Ohio University. Excellent. And we're going to be talking about The Sopranos.
Yeah.
I'm excited because this is like, people say this is like the show that kind of changed television. Mm-hmm. We watched that pilot, and I was into it. So I don't know why I never watched it. We just didn't have HBO, and I was too young when it came out. And then
this is the first show we're going to be covering on the podcast that we had never watched before, and that we've only seen the pilot.
We won't be able to know what happens. We can make predictions. Who knows?
It's going to be a different kind of episode for us.
Yeah, and The Sopranos, if you want to watch it before you listen to our podcast, it's available on Amazon Prime, the whole series. It's also available on HBO if you don't have that. But even if you just have Amazon, it's on there. Yeah. And so look out for that coming at you next week. And hey, guys, until then, follow us on Facebook at You, Me, and TV, on Twitter at You, Me, and TV Pod, on Instagram at You, Me, and TV Podcast. If you want to, you can email us at youmeandtvpodcast@gmail.com. Give us a subscribe to us on subscribe on Apple Podcast. Give us a 5-star review. Subscribe anywhere you listen to. Review anywhere you listen to. I don't know where the reviews are if you don't listen. If you listen to us somewhere else, I don't even know if you can leave reviews on other places.
I have no idea.
I don't know either, but it makes me feel real good when I see a review. Well, 5-star review.
Well, if it's a good review.
If it's a bad review, it makes me feel real angry and confused. Why did you listen? Why did you listen and give it a bad review? Why didn't you just not listen?
It would be so easy.
We're not famous. Anyway, guys, this has been fun. This is, I say this each week recently. This is our longest episode so far. And if you stuck with it this far, you are really, really a cool person that I'm just happy that you're a part of our Dupree family here.
You're Happy Gilmore.
Okay, that's it. Bye. Bye.